Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming and beaming in. This is a very amazing, lovely man, Mr. Tom Jump, has come to Tom Bailey. Tom of Take the Jump has come to share how you can jump into a sustainable future with 6 scientifically researched things that anyone can do to transform and change their life to a more sustainable way of doing things. And I like thinking in the introduction, we know that government and businesses are and corporations are some of the biggest polluters, but every single person makes a difference, and everyone can do something. I'm just going to mute someone there. So without too much further, welcome, Harriet. Lovely to see you. I'm going to say hello in the chat or where you're from, and lovely to see you. We're going to hand over to Tom to tell us about Take the Jump. Take it away.
Woohoo! Okay, thanks, Phoenix, and lovely to see you all and see some familiar faces and new ones. So I'm just going to share my screen. Where we doing presentation here? Can you guys see that, right? If I now do it in slideshow format, you can see that?
Yep, can do.
Jolly good. Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm just going to talk for sort of, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes or something. Maybe that we'll see how long it goes. About Take the Jump and what we're up to, and because we've checked in with we've had a sort of a history of working with the wonderful Climate Emergency Centre network over the last couple of years. There's a whole bunch of local groups that we've worked with, and that's been really fantastic. And we did a talk about a year and a half ago or something. And obviously lots has happened since then. And so we thought it'd be good to check in again and just sort of let you guys know what we're up to, and hear from you guys about what you're doing, and like think more about how we can help move to this future of less stuff, more joy, which is our catchphrase. So yeah, and then also if we have time, we may do a slight little, depends what your energy levels are, guys, but we can maybe do a few minutes of an example little workshop of what we do that's really core to how we approach things, which often is quite heart opening and sort of quite inspiring if we have time, but also some Q&A. So we'll only do that if we have time and energy. So some of these slides are actually taken from a deck that really is kind of meant for reading. So there's a bit of text on them. So don't worry about reading the text. I'll be sharing the slides. You can read the detail if you want in due course. But just starting off with an update on what's been going on, right? And I think like we've basically done our first year pilot. And that we feel like really what that's proven, along with all the research out there and the polling data, which is that a mass movement of everyday people doing something positive, constructive around living a sustainable living like it's like we're already in the sustainable society where we're in balance with nature and where we can all live full and joyous lives. There is a mass demand for that. People want it all around the country, everywhere we go, and even in the international places we're working. Like, yeah, there's this kind of idea that people don't care, right? And that like that everybody needs to somehow be tricked to care about the environment by making it cheaper to be green or whatever. And obviously that's important. But people care about their kids' future. They care about our earth. And everywhere we go, we find there's so many people who just want something to, feel powerless, feel confused, and want to do something, right? And so our pilot has really shown that by the massively positive reaction we've had. We've had 5,000 kind of really active members doing stuff and like trying this in their lives now. We've reached 2.5 million people actually through our social media and online stuff and press. We're fully launched in New Zealand, like a full operational launch there, and they're doing amazing stuff. We're about to launch in Germany. We've fully translated all our stuff and got some great groups in Germany. We're getting on with translating the French version. We've got some great groups in France, and hopefully Canada and the US are going to follow at some point this year. So there's demand for this internationally as well, which is great. There's 30 or so vibrant groups or partners or local organizations that are taking the jump around the UK. It's actually more than that. I need to know what the exact number is, but and we've been engaging with schools, with businesses, with the cultural sector. We were at Glastonbury Festival, Shambhala Festival, doing all sorts of immersive theatre and fun, daft stuff. And we were in Greta Thunberg's book as one of the best things citizens can do to have an impact and live a positive life. So that's really nice. And also we've now got 200 trained ambassadors. So these are people who go through. I'll talk a bit more about the ambassador training because I think it's one of the coolest things we do. It's like a 5-week course that really kind of takes you through the journey to being able to really meet other people around this whole conversation and get over the shame, get over the tension, and be able to engage positively, even with people who are really not on the same page. So we'll talk more about that, but that's just a quick like, hey, like, look, this is where we are, right? But if you've not heard anything about Take the Jump, you might be like, well, what actually is this thing, right? So I'm just going to give you a quick. Some of you will be really familiar with this, but I'm going to give you a quick background. So this whole emerged based on a piece of research that was done by Leeds University, C40, Arup, and loads of experts around the world that looked at the whole world economy, right? All the trade flows going on. It's the first time this has been done on a global scale. So if you look at the IPCC or other organizations or academia or a city plan or a national plan, they tend to draw a ring around a country or a place and say, that's where, let's look at that place. Let's look at England's emissions. And just think about it in that way. And that ignores the impact that the UK has internationally through its consumption, which is a massive chunk, right? And it's particularly important when you go beyond just climate change and you look at land use change, biodiversity loss, ocean acidification, all these massive impacts happening around the world to create iPhones and cables and car tires and things in the UK, right? So this model looks at this. So this is the impact the world economy is having. How do we get to being back in balance with nature? And it had some really transformative findings that completely ruined my career and forced me to quit and to start this thing, because basically it made it clear that, like all these technology tweaks, policy tweaks, top down stuff, very important, but it won't evergreen fast enough, right? We have to look at consumption. We have to look at culture, mindset. We have to be more comprehensive about how we think about this great transition, right? And so
Tom, are you going to mention anything about what you did previously with the Green New Deal, just so folks know?
yeah, okay, well maybe that's part of the story then. And
It
gosh,
is major, major.
part of the the when with my take a jump hat on, I'm very careful to be not political, with a capital P. I'm very political in other parts of my life. So I certainly acknowledge the centrality of that to the transition. But we're trying to sort of get, with take the jump, we're trying to reach all people, and obviously, often politics can be quite a dividing line, often unnecessarily. People on every side of the political aisle care about nature, or can care about nature. So, but anyway, so I did a lot of work with. That said, and I talked about, the stuff I was doing earlier in my career has been with NGOs in the private sector, doing strategic climate change stuff, research, consultancy, and part of some of that work was working for the previous Labour leadership in developing their climate change plan. And so I led the 300-page report that sat behind the 2019 manifesto. And so all the jobs numbers, the economics numbers, the energy numbers, all of that stuff came from the piece of work we did. Obviously, sadly, that election went completely the opposite way. And then I've also been doing some work with up until about 7 months ago with the Labour Party currently on their homes policy, on their home retrofit plan. And we've got some great stuff that they were signed up to, retrofitting every home in the UK by the early 2030s, millions of people taken out of energy poverty. And sadly, they've just scrapped it all. With that 28 billion. So it's too much of a I'm still in the grief period for that. So I don't want to talk about too much, but go on too much, I'll start getting all irate. But so that, and it's part of this sort of seeing the way these things play out has also contributed to this acknowledgement that until we have this kind of a mass movement of people demanding or wanting or living and showing this new way of being, the top down stuff's not going to come, because there isn't, if you look, I'm going to get more into this later, but the politics is just, it's just not there at the moment. And, you just see the thing with Labour, it's just so heartbreaking. And from what I can tell, that's just because they perceive that to be something they could do without massive political repercussions. And we need that to be something that everybody is very, very upset and outraged about. And so really working with everyday people, working with communities, with schools, that's where if governments aren't going to do what they need to do, then we're kind of it's really important that we find these other ways, right? So that's kind of framed as well the journey into a movement like this, right? And empowering everyday people. But it's not just that, that recognition of the lack of leadership at the top, in our leaders. It's actually that science shows, this research here, science shows that citizens and communities are actually central to it anyway. And so we need this. The research showed there's two big findings. The first was that we need a 2/3 reduction in the impact of everything consumed in rich countries in 10 years. So that's everything we consume, like hospitals consume, individuals consume, schools, governments, industry, like food on our plates or in our bins, laptops, cars, machinery and industry, all of it needs to be reduced the impact, particularly in rich countries, in just by 2/3 by the early 2030s. So that's like, whoa, that is a complete transformation of society. It's a massive ask, and you can't just do that with technology and policy tweaks. Now, how on earth you go about doing that? Well, the thing that the research also showed is it looked at the hundreds of changes needed across the world economy to achieve that 2/3 reduction. And you can say, well, that one is the primary influencer is the government. For that one, the primary influencer is citizens and communities. For that one, it's industry. And then you can map kind of like a sort of rough idea of where these big changes sit. And when you do that, you see that actually all sectors have a massive role. And the phrase that comes out of it is we need all action from all actors now. Right. So you know this whole idea like, oh, we can't do anything until business does it, or business going, oh, we can't do anything until government does, or what about China and India? We can't do anything until they do. All of this is just a kind of a way of distracting and avoiding, there is something that every sector needs to be doing, right? And the finding for communities and citizens was that 27% of that change in the next 10 years, at least 27%, citizens and communities have primary influence over. So not, there are, the things that make up this 27%, government and industry also influence, but citizens are really a big stakeholder in this, right? And so this shows, first of all, I just talked about the fact that 80% of people in G20 countries worried about climate change feel powerless and confused. Like, I can't do anything, but this research shows we can, right? So it's actually a message of empowerment, and for me, it was a huge relief to see this number. It's like, oh, well, we can do something, and even if government and industry did everything they need to do, we would still have a big chunk to do here, right? So this is not about, we've got to be clear. Government and industry have most responsibility. The 73%, we're not letting them off the hook by any means, right? And this is something that, often it's really important to say, because industry has spent the last 30 years trying to blame individuals for their mistakes, right? But that's not what we're doing here. This is about the empowerment of people. So how's that 27% happen? First, I'm going to run through these really quick because many of you might know them, and if we can go into the more detail if you want in a bit. But the first one's it's 6 shifts that the science is really clear on, and the first is end clutter, so keeping our electronics, our laptops, our products, our appliances for at least 7 years. And then this is an average. Obviously, a washing machine you'd keep for a lot longer than that. But like this is an average, and so not buying a new phone every year when the new one comes out. Not trying to buy things that are repairable, trying to make sure you do your best to repair them, not buying a new one just because it's a new brand, a new model or whatever. So that's that one, end clutter. Number 2 is travel fresh. Unsurprisingly, trying to get move away from private vehicles, and if we can, moving away from it entirely. And it's not possible for many people. If you live rurally, you're not as mobile, and the systems around us make it difficult. But in an ideal world, we would be able to walking, cycling, public transport, car sharing, would be the way that we travel around. And because if you look at the projections for vehicle production, even when you include electric vehicles, like we have to massively drop off the amount of the expected growth in ownership of vehicles. In many cases, in particular electric vehicles, because of the massive resources needed to make them and their batteries and stuff. So it's true what vehicles there are, what cars there are should be electric, but we need less cars on the road. That is the absolute message for the wider planet in the next coming decades. So travel fresh. And number 3, unsurprisingly, eat green, go as close to plant-based as you can. Don't waste any food. Eat everything you buy. Pretty simple. I mean, you'd have to go all the way plant-based, but it's as close as you can. And we've got some target numbers in there. And then the next one, 4th, is holiday local. So this is the one that like young people tend to hate me for. About excited and about to go off and travel and see the world with is one return flight every 3 years short haul, one return flight every 8 years long haul. Okay, so it means you can still go to every continent in your lifetime, if in an average lifetime. You can still see the world, but it's just about getting back into balance and not going on weekend trips to Istanbul or whatever. And so and enjoying the magic of our local where we live or where we can get to by train, which I have found really enriching trying this one. And then the 5th one is dress retro. So acknowledging the massive impact of clothing. So the stat I'm always telling everyone is that in the US, the average US citizen buys 50, that's 50 new items of clothing a year. 50, that's one a week. That's an average, like year in, year out. You know, the fast fashion thing's gone bananas. So like trying to get that down to 3 is a target here. But you can still do secondhand, rented, shared, upcycled. You know, you can still look great, change your wardrobe all the time. But uh yeah, trying to keep those new items down for reasons which we can get to the science behind each of these and the reasons why if you want. But I'm guessing you guys probably get the basic reasons why we need to buy less new clothes. So those five, if everybody did those, right, that would be 27% of the change needed, right, in the next 10 years. What about the rest of it? Well, this is where change the system comes in. And we invite people to do one of 8 things to try and shift the world around us. So this is things like engaging with the global finance market through your pensions, which is the main way that we influence global finances as individual, as everyday people. So shifting your pension to a green pension, or the energy sector by swapping to a green energy provider, or energy efficiency by retrofitting your home. We don't have a home retrofit shift on its own, because really that's something that must come in at the government level. It's too expensive for most people to do. It costs 30 grand to do a full home retrofit and get a heat pump. So that's what I mean. You know, in my other job, that's what I really focus on a lot. And that really homes need to be treated like national infrastructure. And expecting, you know, in a time like now, normal people to pay for all of that, it's just well, it just hasn't worked, right? So we put that in this one because those who can afford it, we're really encouraged to do it, but we're not. It's a lot to put on people, a lot of pressure that they should be finding all that money to retrofit their homes if they're economically disadvantaged or whatever. And then a whole bunch of other things like engaging in politics, engaging in your local community, ecosystem restoration, getting involved in education. So it's like a long list of all these different things that we invite people to do one of to change the system. And they could do more if they want. And this is where getting involved in the CECs is one. So in the community side, you know, for one of the 8. So that is the 6 shifts, and that is taking the jump, right? This is whether we like it or not, the science is clear. This is what the future looks like, right? If we're going to avoid ecological breakdown by the early 2030s, this is what it looks like. And so the idea of taking the jump is like we have a little jump into that future. We have an experiment, we live it, we walk around, we smell the air, we sort of see what it feels like to be living that world. And we invite people to try for 1, 3, or 6 months. Obviously that's a small amount of time, but it's the idea is that we make it so positive for people that then they're hooked. And one of the great benefits is that like these 6 based on that research are the main things that people need to be doing. Obviously there's lots more we could be doing. There's a whole bunch of things that are not in here, but the research was clear these are the big hitters when you look at the 9 planetary boundaries, right? And so it makes it simple for people, and you don't, there's not gamification, you're not left with lots of decisions to make yourself. It's like, here's the 6, have a go. Okay. Although as we'll talk about in a minute, you don't have to do all of them. It's about doing what we can. But so that's the 6 shifts, and really what the movement is then about is about trying to is these 3 steps, right? If taking the main sort of what you might call pillars of society, of social transformation, and the first one is this one about unlocking the power of people, and using leading behavior change, using a joyous approach, some stuff I'll go into in a minute, to sort of reach beyond the echo chamber and engage everyday people by meeting people where they are, by not pointing fingers and dousing people in doom and gloom, and a whole range of other methods to activate a part of society towards to try and take the jump and to experiment with it. And then once we've got that, and also just to inform people about the shifts and to try and get it out there as much as possible, then step 2 is or pillar 2, for those who take part, helping people actually go through and make this change, because it's all well and good telling people what these shifts are, but how do we actually help people make a change when the whole world is pushing the other way? So there's a whole load I'll talk more about on that in a bit, and then bringing those people together into a joyous movement where we have schools, businesses, communities, individuals experimenting with this new way of living, right? And finding this joyous alternative, starting to live like, we're not we're not just consumers, we're humans again. And then using those great examples to transmit to everyone else. And the idea, in the change the paradigm one, which is all about shifting culture. So if we've got these, examples all around the rich world or the industrialized world, of this better way of doing it, then being really smart about how we bring everybody else with us and change minds and culture so that other people start shifting naturally, almost by osmosis. And the target for this is to reach a quarter of the population, or by the early 2030s, to have a quarter of people in these countries trying this or being influenced by it. So that's 300 million people. So that's our target for the early 2030s. And then the research implies that once you hit a quarter, that kind of tends to be the tipping point where you get this wide scale mindset shift, which is, based on what we talked about with the politics stuff earlier, that feels like still that's a huge barrier to getting leaders to do what we need them to do. And so that's really our goal here, is to create this platform where the momentum is irresistible then, and this real deep shift in what it means to be a human, and our relationship with our earth starts to just snowball. So that's kind of like the theory of how it all works at a very, very high level. But what about how? How do we actually take the jump? How do we actually go, it's all well and good, like I said, having this information. How do we help people through this transition? Well, we've pulled together a bunch of foundations that are based on like leading behavior change science. I'm going to motor through a couple of them just to give you an idea. The first is that trying is enough to just start, right? And a lot of people, when we talk about this, especially in green circles, people are like, hang on a minute, that ain't true, because like the science is clear, we got to get there, whether you like it or not. These are the changes that are needed, and they're needed soon, and that's true. But that is not the way most people approach change. And actually, if you expect to be perfect overnight, you can't. You just back off, right? Imagine saying to a young child who's about to start playing the piano, you better be a grade 8 by tomorrow. They'd be like, what? They wouldn't be able to do, and it would. So like, change doesn't work like that. You have a little go, then you fail, and you forget about it, and then someone else gives you a pat on the back, and you try it again, and then you meet another person who inspires you, and then you learn a new skill, and you get excited, and you build this momentum, and it changes like that, right? And you got to help people take, for instance, with the dress retro one, 3 new items of clothing a year. If that's here, and we're talking to someone who's way back there and buys 50 a year, this is a big gap. So what we're doing is helping people take the first step that's available to them, getting them linked into this network, and getting them building momentum and feeling the joy and the positivity about it. So getting people started. The flip side of that, if we can't all be perfect, because we can't, right? We're all hypocrites, right? I think this is something that I think is true. Well, I'm a hypocrite, and I think it's quite funny. It's just fine. No one's perfect. Like, this whole thing, you go on TV or something at the moment, anyone who does, wants to make a point about the environment, the first question they ask you, yeah, but I bet you fly. It's like, let's own it. Yeah, of course I'm a hypocrite. Of course I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be, and that then allows you to meet other people directly without this sort of top-down preachiness. My example I'm always using is blue cheese. I can't resist it. If you put a bit of blue cheese in front of me and said the world will literally explode tomorrow if you eat that, I'll still eat it. Like, I'm doing my best, and I'm making massive changes. So like, we're human. So if we're not perfect, let's not shame ourselves or each other. Let's support each other. So no shaming. It doesn't work. Certainly not for most people. So that's really key to the whole vibe, right? And the other thing about this is, so rather than it being doom and gloom and imagining that like, oh, all I need to do, like, when you find out about the environment, the catastrophe, the situation we're in, you're like, oh, this is making me panic. I need to tell people how bad this is, and if I just make them panic too, then it'll be okay. And it's like that just makes people go mad. And like, if you tell someone everything's really wrong and you can do nothing about it, and your kid's future is in jeopardy, they've their response when they go, that's nonsense, it's not a rational choice, it's an emotional necessity. They have to, we have to work with the way that people work emotionally, right? And so the key to this is the joy of the world that we're bringing into being, right? It's not just about, avoiding emissions, it's about this will be better, right? And so this is why I say take the jump is a jump for joy. And each of the 6 shifts here, I mean, we've got reasons why each of them actually makes our lives better. Holiday local, we connect with nature and we connect with the local culture, and you get out of the treadmill of having to have the perfect Instagram holiday photo on a beach, and you can just enjoy your blooming holiday, or like eat green. It's much healthier for us, right? You live, some research says you can live up to 10 years longer if you cut down a high meat diet. So there's loads of ways that these things actually make our lives better, right? The shifts, but even more deeply, right? A world that isn't just about consuming would actually be better, right? This idea, you're not a human, you're a consumer. You don't have worth, you're worthless, and you get your worth by buying stuff. right? And like, you're separate from me, you're separate from the earth. This is nonsense, right? And like, so like, yeah, yes, consuming is important, but what about all the other C's that make life great? Like care, craft, creativity, culture, connection, comedy, celebration, contentment, yada, 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 right? And like, and this is the stuff we really lean into. And I'm going to slowly getting into the sort of community level stuff now, which obviously is really linking into what we're here to talk about. Because when we do this at the community level, this is the stuff we really lean into. This is this is what we're jumping to, right? The world we're jumping to. If the six shifts are kind of like what we're leaving, this is where we're landing. A world that's like this. And I think a phrase that really kind of like we use a lot, which is if you want to change the world, you've got to throw a better party, right? Because like you walk past a party, you can hear the music and people clinking their glasses. God, I want to be in there, and like that's how we get people. If we just describe what's wrong with today, like that won't get us anywhere. It's just going to freak everyone out. Like, but if we show, look, this is what we're doing tomorrow, and it's great. Come join. And so like this is the ethos of what we try and do, particularly at the community level, well, in everything we do. Here you've got some examples. There's a group in Manchester on the top left who we did this amazing event with all sorts of different communities and like locally grown food that the sort of guerrilla permaculture guys had brought along and yeah, engaged the community there. And there's lots of celebration and music and crafts and stuff. On the right there, we've got our immersive theatre stuff that we had at Glastonbury Festival in the theatre field. At the bottom there, you've got one of the New Zealand groups, which is kind of partly led by some of the Maori community there, and you can see all the stuff is translated into Maori as well, which it sounds even better. I can never quite pronounce it, but Tongahe Tekepe is take the jump in Maori. It sounds beautiful when someone who can pronounce it properly says it. And yeah, so so this is kind of core to what we do at the community level, right? And I think one of the things that I want to mention to you all is that take the jump. We have a whole range of ways that we can engage with different types of organizations and stuff. And local community groups is really one, right? And so there's a little map at the bottom there. That's just South England of local groups that we kind of come and work with. And what this often looks like is it's basically just people taking the jump together, right? And I think the key thing is that the take the jump is not trying, and it's not something. It's not like a new kid on the block, right? That's kind of trying to muscle in with everyone else. It's a set of resources that anyone can use. It's something that existing organizations and efforts and groups and people can have a go at and can help support them. So it's not like we're trying to set up new groups. I mean, that has happened spontaneously sometimes, but this is something that those who are already trying to do something can really use and leverage. And often it involves bringing people together to try take the jump, try making these changes as a little community, and then based on that experience and the personal stories, then engaging with the wider community and doing all sorts of things, right? And so we have a range of toolkits that we have available. So community building toolkit, a communication guide and toolkit, schools kits and presentations and workshops and assemblies and projects, and then a whole range of stuff for engaging local authorities and businesses to help, if you're trying to get out into that wider community. And what's got to move my little cursor thing so I can see the rest of the slide. We help with events, so events around the particular shifts. So you can see the shifts on the right. We're doing things like clothes swaps, bike repair shops, eco fashion catwalks, plant-based cookings, carpools, walking buses, all sorts of things like that we've been doing with different community groups. Bottom left there's a picture of a repair shop with the group in Woking. So we help with that. We have like a team of people who can sort of offer guidance and help get these things up and running if that's helpful. We've got training on community, particularly our ambassador training, which we'll talk a bit more about on communication and so on. We have a whole range of assets like posters and flyers and banners and artwork and stuff. I didn't mention on the events, we've got all sorts of fun workshops as well that people could put on. Like we have a Consumers Anonymous session, which we can train people in, which is so much fun. It's basically you get a run in the circle. It's basically like slightly respectfully riffing off AA or something like that. And it's a bit of immersive theatre, and everyone's like, "Hello, my name's Tom, and I'm a consumer. Hello, Tom." And then we go on this. There's a whole orchestrated journey where you go from being a consumer and you really lean into being you're almost like, imagine if you had a 10 million pounds, what would you go buy it? Oh, I go buy a yacht and blah, blah, blah. And you sort of really lean into your consumer goblin, and then through this journey of recovery come back to being a human being again. And it's really good fun, but it's quite beautiful as well.
Love it, love it. Hello, I'm a consumer. I'm moving to being a sharer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and at the end, so you start by the end, you pick something else like, "Hello, my name's Tom, and I'm a laugher, or I'm a father, or I'm a lover, or I'm a maker," or like we're reborn at the end as actually what we are, not just some blooming number on a sort of
Brilliant.
shareholder spreadsheet. Um, and then also connections. So we have lots of groups that we can link into stuff, and people into other examples of stuff going on that we can link into people. We have a hub that is about to get back up and running, and that's international. So there's people around the world who you can get inspiration and chat to and learn about all this kind of stuff. And I think another key bit of this. How am I doing for time?
You're
Okay,
doing fine. Yeah, you're on 35. You can flow on for a little bit, and then we'll
okay,
go.
a maximum 5 more minutes, I promise.
Okay.
So
Brilliant. Some good stuff. And
uh,
if you've got questions, get your questions ready. Over.
okay. A key part of this, which the big question we always ask is, how do we get beyond the same? I mean this in the nicest possible way, but like middle class white groups that we normally exist in these efforts, and get into everyday people and wider communities. And I think a key thing that we found with this is that this is, often there's this idea that we need to find the right language or the right kind of branding or the right kind of Facebook sort of campaign. It's about people talking to people, and it takes time, and it's about building relationships with community leaders, personal trusting relationships where you leave your ego at the door and build those relationships with different groups that then allows through co-creation an appropriate new manifestation of this to emerge in different communities. And we talk a lot about this in our training. But this is, I think, core thing that we sort of focus on and can help local groups with doing that, getting beyond the echo chamber. And how we then help people, I think, like as we build this movement, there's three main pillars of what we do, which is giving, if you take the jump or you try these shifts, provide direct support to individual through workshops and guides and training, through collective action. That's what we've just talked about, how we support local groups, civil society, businesses getting involved, and then bringing everyone together into a connected movement. These three all really provide the engines of momentum for us. It's like, imagine, I'm trying to, do these 6 shifts. I'm finding it hard, but if I've got lots of guidance on how to do it, which is that kind of helps. If I've got other people I can connect with in my local area, and I can see there's local businesses are trying this shift as well, and the systems around me are starting to unpick a little bit, makes it easier. And then if I feel like I'm part of this collective tidal wave of a movement, then that really helps buoy the sort of the momentum. And these have really emerged after several years of just asking people and doing research around what it is that helps people transition. And really, this is our day to day, is kind of keeping these three actioned. And another quick thing about reaching out as well, which is something we can really help local groups with, which is how we sort of expand into other sectors and get sort of better reach and uptake. And we've got a whole range of doing this. So through building partnerships, through publicity and being in the press, through ambassadors, and we do stuff with local authorities, communities, business, young people, and cultural institutions. So young people, we go into schools. We've got a whole schools paid program where we can do, as I mentioned earlier, assemblies and so on. Local authorities, we can help engage with local authorities and get them. We do partnerships with local authorities for like 18 months where we help the local authority engage their citizens in making sustainable change, because councils all have these climate targets, but no one wants to be told what to do by the council, right? Imagine being told to eat less meat by the council. Probably make me eat more meat. So like it's kind of how we help get beyond those, help them do that. Yeah, and so I could talk more about these if you want, but I'm conscious of time. Here's just the example of the schools one, where we do, all sorts of different stuff, different schools with different capacities. Some schools are like, we're just so busy. If you can look after the kids for an hour, great, but don't ask anything else. Others want help to do all sorts of different transitions at the school. Some kids want deep ambassador training. Some kids couldn't care less. So we have a whole range of things that we sort of offer. And then the ambassador training, which is something we'll have a new one for the UK on New Zealand, Australia region one just started. The Americas region one just stopped. The UK one will start in probably probably early March. So if anyone wants to join that, it's 5 weeks. It might actually go up to 6 weeks, which I know it feels like a lot more, but we just had requests for more content for the people who've done it. where we go right into that, connecting with other people, getting beyond the idea that I'm right and you're wrong, and meeting people where they are with their challenges, and really listening, and then the inspiration of joy as a way of inspiring transition, and then various toolkits and guides and how to do workshops and presentations, and we could do optional media training and all sorts of stuff. And then just to mention, we have various ways of connecting people around the world, like our hub and online events and so on. And very finally, last two slides, 20 seconds on each. Just acknowledging that, what we kind of talked about earlier, this ecosystem of actors that's trying to drive the transition, it's got a big gap in it right now. On the left, we have momentum builders, so NGOs, activism, which is really great, but so far has only reached the 13%. The really activated people hasn't got beyond that. The researchers, the IPCC and all that, they've done their bit, but no one's listening. The media giving us a load of nonsense most of the time. And then on the right-hand side, you've got what you might call the direct actors, industry, local government, national government. The big missing piece is a mass movement of everyday people in places. I know you guys have recognized this. This is what you're working on too. And I think like the important point is recognizing where we fit within all that. We're friends with all these other groups. We support them. We invite support back. But this is why something like this, like you're doing, what we're doing, is so important. And the reason really, just to this is my final slide, is that like the research is clear that other 73%, we talked about 27, that won't happen if you look at history until there is a mass shift in culture and mindset that allows leaders to make the systemic changes that we need. And that really is about changing the way we think and feel. And that's a core part of this, but perhaps I shan't talk anymore because I'll go too far. There we go. Blah, blah, blah.
Fantastic. Really amazing. Thank you, Tom. That was brilliant. Really informative, loads in there. So folks, if you've got a question, if you want to down the bottom in the reactions thing, there's a little thing where you can raise your hand. We can tell who's 1, 2, and 3, or you can wave your hand around and maybe I'll be able to spot that, but it's easier if you use reaction. So is there any questions, feedback, statements, or anything there for Tom? Thank you very much, Tom. That was really I really identify with that, joyous movement. Just to say a little bit, we really, really need, things that give us hope and joy and talk about the solutions. And these are solutions. And there is so much climate doom out there and people who are feeling very sad, and it's disempowering. And we know it's bad as activists for many decades, but we've got to get on with the joy and the solutions and have a good party, bring people in and get organised. So we've got 1, 2, 3 there on the University Challenge. Phil from Clan Law Dog over in Carmarthen Way. Phil, then Maidenhead, then Penny. Over.
That's a very good effort at saying Llan Llawddog, I've got to say that. I'm the treasurer of our group, and I'm as tight as anything. To buy all the kit and all the pack, how much does that cost, or do we get that printed ourselves?
Well, so all the content is free online. So all the resources, everything's completely open source. We never charge anyone anything. So depending on where our budgets are, we can at a given week, we can help out with printing sometimes. So basically get in touch, and if we have the cash, we'll help. But we don't always, because it's not easy to fund this stuff. But certainly all the artwork and all that kind of things is free. And if we come and help, and if then that's always free as well. So around particular events or launches and stuff, we can often send someone up to help do workshops and stuff and things like that.
Oh.
So we never charge communities. That's not, not good.
Thank you very much, Tom.
No worries, Philip.
Oh, let's get some exhibitions up to Carmarthen. Wild Maidenhead.
Hiya, Tom. We use your stuff in the Eco Action Hub in Maidenhead. I think you've been in, Michelle was our contact with you. So she's been great. Do you have references for the 2/3 that those figures that you gave us, the 2/3 and then the 27%?
I sure do. Let me stick it in the chat.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
It's on our website.
Oh, is it? Oh, I can find it probably.
Yeah, well, just to make it easier for you, I'll think there's various bits of research, and it's I think the most digestible one is this one, and this has all the links to the other more detail. So basically, it's like a whole program of research by all sorts of experts around the world, proper peer-reviewed science and stuff. And this is a kind of summary of some of it, of most of it, and it kind of links to the other bits. So it's
thanks.
takethejump.org/power of people.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yep, no worries.
Okay.
It was meant to be me next, but I've forgotten what I was going to say, so I'll put my hand down.
Hop over to Chris then, and then Tim, and you can have a go when you're ready. Chris.
Hi Tom. Thank you for the story. Two things. One, transition. I've been kind of involved in my local group. First heard about them 20 years ago, and I've done my transition training. Right. But it's not a kind of a thing, oh yeah, it's got to be just this. But obviously they're another group that's achieved a global network.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's some overlap, but there's also some things that you do differently. And do you guys work together? Is there a connection, a partnership, anything there?
Yeah, I was on Rob's podcast a couple of months ago, and we've kind of been talking about it, and there's quite a few transition groups which have used our stuff, and we're sort of trying to figure out. We need to figure out how formally we talk about a relationship, because I think the way I kind of frame it is that this is a resource for transition groups to use.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if you just if you do, obviously, great. If you don't, but there's a guy, Richard Caldry, that kind of runs the London Southeast hub, and he also seems to be one of the main employees of transition. So if you haven't already spoken to him, connected to him, there's a WhatsApp group, and so it might be worth reaching out that way. Anyway, that's just a hopefully strengthening alliances. Second, you mentioned education there. Schools, and I've had the same conversation with transition, is what about universities? You have young people from around the world studying. I'm about to hopefully get a job at working with Queen Mary's residential for the postgrad students. I would love to start bringing in things like transition training. I did Climate Fest training, take the jump training, so that at least we're planting seeds in these internationals in London, on the island. We're not flying around the world to spread the news. And then they take it home. They take it to their communities, not some middle-class white boy, local, whatever it is. And I feel that that's still something, an underexplored and underdeveloped kind of angle. Is that something, but I don't know about you guys. I mean, I must admit, in my naivety, I only learned about you today. Is that something that you guys are doing, university outreach?
So not as much as we would like. So, but I think, and that's just the case of, we're still quite young, and we're sort of making our way around all the different sectors. But we're doing a session with UWE, University of West of England, coming up soon. I think students would be I mean, they're really, in many ways, they're the perfect, they haven't quite got all the layers of
claws in them while they're young.
Well, exactly. And
Don't say that out loud.
They're old enough to
but make their own choices. They're old enough. It's not
That's
like
right,
manipulating children. It's providing an adult with information that they can then process and choose to ignore.
Agreed. Yeah,
don't get me wrong. I think schools are great as well. But it's a different thing. Tom, and also, I mean, I must admit, I've been on the website. I mean, there's a contact and info at. Are you happy to provide an email address for myself and perhaps others in the chat, so that we can contact you?
Well, I think the main one is still that team.takethejump. I mean, I've got a personal one I can put in as well if you want to get directly in touch with me. But also, if you contact the team at takethejump.org one, I'll see that for sure.
Okay, all right. No, I'm happy to leave it there.
And Chris, if you know people, we'd love to connect with universities. So.
Well, the thing is, I'm based in London, so London being the size that it is, it's one of these places that if you invest resources, they go further.
Yeah.
It's not some small out-of-town place. It's a city with God knows how many universities. And you can have a central, meetings, conferences, trainings for a dozen universities in one place in central London. Perhaps a space provided by Phoenix and the space generators or climate emergency centres.
I think that's a great idea, Chris, because people then take it back all over the world, like you say. It's a good point.
In their language, in their culture. It's not. Yeah. All right, Tom, I could go on, but I'll let somebody else have a go. I'll try and get through to. I'll send you an email. My name's Chris Heaton, is my surname. I'll send you a contact email tonight, and let's follow up.
Cool. I think we've got Tim or Dinah in Lewis. I wasn't sure who's next. Dinah, you're coming up as 937421, but whatever you want to call yourself, we're all open-minded here. Who was first? You
Wasn't me. I wasn't first.
Tim in Lincoln, then 937421. Over. I'm a name, not a number.
Is it me? Am I going next?
Yes, Tim. Go on, Tim. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, simple one for me, really. I mean, I do like the simplicity of it. I mean, and we've been using it on not so much in our CEC, but we've got a little climate action group, and it's a great way when you've got people come up and you're doing a stand somewhere, you can just run through the different things. And one other thing, just a simple one. I mean, did people actually sign up on to say, I'm going to take the jump and sign up for it? Is it something that they physically do? Because we haven't been sort of taking it to that stage, and I probably just need to research it a little bit more on the website or whatever.
Yeah, no. So people sign up, and they you basically sign up on the website, and you specify, I'm going to try for 1 month, 3 months, or 6 months. And then we also, if people want, we say, like, which bit are you going to try? Are you going to try all of it, or are you going to try one shift, or and then basically they get a load of emails and they get linked into the online calls, and and they get support to go through that journey, and we try and get them hooked in this new way of living, as best we can. So yeah,
that sounds good. Yeah, excellent. Thanks for
Uh,
that.
Dinah next, and then I've got one, and then Chris. Or stick your hand up, folks, if you got one. Dinah.
Yeah, two things. Would it be all right if we put a link to Take the Jump website on our Lewis Climate Hub website and newsletter? Would that be allowed?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Amazing. Next question. We've got Sussex University down the road. They're always on the BBC because they're one of the nearest universities to London. If we were to try and get hold of students there, be best to go through the student union. How do you approach to get a bunch of students to come to something like this without having a university?
Yeah. How does one approach it?
Yeah.
Well, I think so. Well, first, we've actually got our communications person is in Brighton, actually, so they can. Yeah, so I think that often we just often it's actually universities and schools that get in touch with us, but like if we basically just get in touch with them and share them a deck of what the kind of stuff we want to do and ask for a cup of tea, basically, and then just go and find ideally, if you know someone who knows someone, it makes it a lot easier.
So I know you, and you know the person in Brighton. So is there any way that we could like get something together with Brighton and Sussex universities, the two of them? The funny thing is, Brighton doesn't have a climate hub, but Lewis does. I don't know why Brighton doesn't, but Lewis does. Lewis isn't far from Brighton or Sussex. We may be able to do an outreach and actually take it to the university and do it there.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I would like. Yeah, I think actually we know plenty of people in Brighton, actually, so I'm sure we could do that. And there have been people who've talked about setting up a Take the Jump group there, but it never quite happened yet. But like, so and I think figuring out how to do an event doing an event for students, I think would be so much fun because you can get into all the detail, but also students perhaps aren't quite as stuck in daft ways of thinking yet as many older people are.
Would it be possible to be put in touch with your Brighton contact, and I could have a chat and see how we could do it on the ground, kind of thing?
No problem.
It's a bit dodgy. Sounds a bit dodgy, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Yeah, no, for sure.
That's great. Cross-pollinating. That's what we want. Sharing things around the network. I'm going to come over to Christine, if that's all right, Chris, just because you've had a bite of the chair a sec. Christine.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm at Bournemouth Uni, and we just wanted to echo, and say I agree with Chris. There is this kind of potential to kind of sow the seeds with the international students because we've got such a high percentage of them, and we have like a sustainability week, and we do bits and bobs, but we could definitely do more. But the students are keen, and there is stuff, they're already doing it, aren't they? People are doing it. We could always do more.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, if you know anyone at Bournemouth, I mean, I think as I forget your name, I'm sorry, but 937421. said, I think the student union is actually quite a good way. For sure. Yeah. So if you know anyone there, put us in touch.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I will. If you, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay then.
So a very good one started by Chris there about getting the universities in and cross-pollinating out around the world. And Penny in Weymouth.
Hello, this isn't the question that I've forgotten, but hi Christine. Yeah, so we're in Weymouth and it just follows on. We've actually got, I think, 60 students that want to come down and do something in Weymouth from Kingston University. So we're sort of putting on I don't know, like a people's assembly type thing. And we've just had a meeting with them today and, you know, trying to work out how we meet their agenda and fit ours into the same program, basically. But in the same sort of breath, we were like, well, our nearest university is Bournemouth. So hi, Christine, maybe we can maybe we can have a chat sort of out of this arena at some point, because it would be really good to hook up with our local uni. Yeah. And thanks, Tom. I know about the jump. We haven't been able to do it. We don't have a space, but yeah, I'm thinking about putting it, you know, we could put it on a website and we could use it as a resource maybe. Yeah, in the interim.
Good.
Well, a lot of excitement spreading around the country there. Maybe there should be a university and student tour. Chris, did you want your point in there?
Yeah, sorry. One other thing, the ambassador training you mentioned. I seem to be, enjoying adding these different kind of trainer programs. Did you say you were offering one in the UK in the near future? I know you said you just completed one, wasn't it? But...
No, so the new UK one will start early March. So we can show. We haven't quite nailed exactly when it will. I think it's going to start the first week of March, but which night it is and what time. I think it. Typically, we've done them on Thursdays at 6:15, running for an hour and a half. No, 6:30 for an hour and a half. So it'd probably be that. So the first Thursday of March. But I'll send around the details once we've confirmed it.
Yeah. Okay. I think some people are starting to beam off because Carmarthen's got to go. But just to say, a bit of movement history here. We did something called the Velvet Revolution tour around different universities in the Criminal Justice Act days. And students, as you know, are very lively organisers. They're traditionally involved with bringing large movements of people together. When the students really get mobilised and with other working people and other groups, then movements really start to move. So maybe there's a way. We are taking an exhibition of 40 years of protest around to various different climate emergency centres. We can have something about climate emergency centres there in one of the printed panels. We could also maybe take the jump panel, Tom. Maybe we can, let's hack into the university network. Currently, we're working on linking into Oxford and Cambridge a bit more. I know they have some sustainability leadership programs and other things. So it really is about getting in at that university level and getting this information out. I think what you're doing is amazing. And, any way we can cooperate more, as you've seen, there's already quite a lot of interest from different centres around the country and university groups and things that can link in. So any final, we'll run over, it's 3 minutes too, but we can run over to 5 past or so. Any other feedback, particularly anyone who hasn't spoken, any brothers or sisters or brothers, however we do it nowadays, anyone who hasn't spoken who wants to share something or share your wisdom? Over to Sunny Preston.
I just think it's great because I use some of the material in the CEC. I put posters up amongst like the second-hand clothes and about less junk and stuff like that. So we've used it a few times. It's great. Have you got an app, Tom?
Yeah, so it's been down for a bit, but it's about to go back up. It's basically we have. It's called. It's hub.takethejump.org, but it's not quite up yet. But it will be in a few days again. We had some technical issues. But I'll send it around. Yeah, you can have a chat with.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Nice one. Thank you.
Yeah, cheers, Debs.
Yeah, thank you very much. I only got half of it, but it was a brilliant half, so thank you.
Oh, good.
It's been recorded. It will go out on our YouTube channel after this and gets emailed out to people. So if you look at Climate Emergency Centre or centres on YouTube, you'll find our channel and it'll be up there in a day or so. The lovely Chris is helping us get them up quicker nowadays. Really interesting. So any parting final comments? Put something in the chat, a couple of words about what you thought is really nice, something that trust the people do at the end of their things. So Tom, as a networker, what I'm always interested in is, how can we accelerate this? How can we make it get out to more people? So if we can get the resources to people, I think the system change, how can we create more system change, expanding on that a bit? And it's really, really important work you're doing that, anybody can do. It's not something that you have to have, a high level of degree of anything for. Anybody can do this. So it's really, really important. Anyone who hasn't shared us their email, share us your email. I'm going to say just a quick parting. Next week we have, before we come over to Tom to finalise, we have Rebecca Shaman, is what I know her as, from the British Hemp Alliance, coming to talk about how hemp can help the UK government achieve net zero targets. And as some of us may know, hemp is, in my book, it's the #1 climate solution. It is food, it is fiber, it is fuel, it is medicine. It holds deserts together. It absorbs 40 times the CO2 of the same acreage of trees. You can replace your plastic with biodegradable plastic. As a solutions network, it's one of the biggest ones. I just want to put my point in there that I'm really glad, Tom, that you are bringing in the joyous movement and partying and celebrating. As old Reclaim the Streets bossy, I think it's really, really important that we have fun while we're doing it, that we celebrate. You can have an art exhibition for 50 people about the environment, but if you put a DJ, music, bands into it, you suddenly get a few hundred. We really need to, and there's so much climate doom, and it's really important to point out how bad it is to everyone, but it's really, really, really important to give people hope, to give people solutions, to give them the spaces, is what the Climate Emergency Centre Network is, to bring in all these different groups and projects and solutions. So thank you for bringing a joyous movement that we can all work together on. I will hand over to Tom for parting comments. Anything else, Tom?
Well, just a big thank you. And on that joyous note, we've got this massive event coming up. Well, not massive, but amazing event coming up in North London in April, which we've got funding for to create. It's called If You Want to Change the World Through a Better Party. We're taking over part of the high street of a building on the high street in Chingford. We've got actors, immersive theatre, designed set up. We've got lighting. It's like a whole. Basically it's like a house party that you get involved in, and you get transported to the future, and you can bring your kids, and the idea is we're trialing it there, and then all of these resources are going to be available for communities to use around the country. So maybe we'll come back and talk to you about that, but that's if you're around on this joyous party element, actually come to a party in North London and experience it, or you can see us online because we'll be streaming it. So
is there a web link or anything for that, Tom?
Oh, hang on, before we go, I can just get. We've got I've got to admit, it's a bit rubbish at the moment, but we have a page.
Okay.
But it's getting improved. So it was.
Okay. Parting comment from anyone who hasn't spoken, Harriet or Sony? Yes, we can bring things to Southampton. Kez?
No, just a quick thank you to Tom. I'm from Carmarthen as well, so there's quite a big group of us here today. But look to access the sort of wider community. But we've got a presence on the high street, so hopefully we can do that with your resources. So really looking forward to it. Yeah, really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Harriet.
All right, brilliant. So I'm going to end the recording there, but just after saying, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you know that anybody can take one of these 6 jumps. So take the jump into a sustainable future, and find a vacant property in your high street that we can all see, and set up a climate emergency centre. Check out climateemergencycentre.co.uk and take the jump together. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Phoenix, as always.